ourselves together here. I want to welcome you to the annual AARP Candidate Forum here in Colchester. We usually have it the week before the election, but because of a conflict with the senior center for next week, we moved it up a week, which is okay because it's probably warmer. Easy to get up. Now, first of all, I want to review general procedures. This is not a presidential debate. Therefore, what I would request that the candidates do is answer a question, just answer it as it applies to you. Don't refer to somebody else's position. Don't call somebody else a liar. You know, don't do any of that stuff that happened in that horrible thing they called the presidential election last year. Now, I'm going to ask the candidates to introduce themselves, and I'd like everybody to speak with no more than 2 minutes. And we have a timekeeper here, Marie Flanagan. She will raise it when we're getting close to the end of the 2 minutes. Now, just for everybody's information, the candidates that we invited are candidates for positions that are policy-making positions. We invited candidates for First Selectman, Board of Selectmen, Board of Education, and Board of Finance. Those are the policy-making positions. The town treasurer does not really make policy. The Board of Assessment Appeals really does not make policy. They operate strictly under state statutes. And I also want to make everybody aware that there are questions on the ballot relative to changes in the charter. And someone may want to ask candidates how they feel about that. I doubt if there's any party positions on any of that. But you may want to know, and you may want them to explain that. I also have been informed that there will be an article in the River East about the policy changes to the charter, questions. And I believe it's 6 questions. And I was only reminded of that a few minutes ago, so I'm mentioning it so I can now proceed to forget it and not have to worry about it. Okay, now I'm going to start and go down the table, ask everybody to introduce themselves, what position the candidate is running for, and what kind of background or personal experience that you have that would make you uniquely qualified for the position for which you're running. And let's just start here with my left.
Hi everyone, my name is Mary Byloon. I'm running for the Board of Education. I'm on the Democratic ticket. And my background is that I'm a retired Chief Nursing Officer for Hartford Healthcare. Prior to that, I was a teacher. And in my nursing career, I travel around the country. I actually do national speaking on topics around developing aspiring nurse leaders. The reason I'm running for the Board of Education is that I'm extremely proud of the town that I moved into 12 years ago. One of the things that I know right from the realtor was learning about how great the education is here in town. And I have a lot of friends who have children that have gone through the system, and I've seen it firsthand. And I think what I bring is a fresh set of eyes, being able to take a look at some of the challenges that are before us. But I'm not afraid of those challenges, because in times like this, what we need are leaders to lead. And that's what I'm prepared to do. That's what my career of over 35 years in nursing leadership has prepared me to do. I thank you for your attention today.
I apologize for one thing. The first selectman, Chalosky, was announced earlier, cannot make it today. But he did send a letter, which I intended to read first, and I put it down and forgot. And so I will read it right now. This is from the first selectman. He said, the past 2 years, flown by, and we have been extremely busy. Thank you for all your support and the team effort. Thank you in advance for the next 2 years. Things that we have accomplished. We said, taking the Norton Mill down and begin the process for a park that's open in Northwest Chester. Starting the Johnson Middle School project to be completed in year 2018. Purchase the current senior center building, that's this building. Purchase land for the future senior center. In terms of economic development, we've had some things. There's a pet supply store that has come in, a fitness center in Keystone Plaza, new addition at Alpha Q on Upton Road, a new Dunkin' Donuts and gas station in Westchester, and a new Mexican restaurant on Route 85. Things we are working to in the future. Encore expansion on Upton Road is putting up 3 new buildings. To the left of Stop and Shop Plaza, there will be a new multi-use building. The owners of Keystone Plaza purchased building across from Mackey's with new development coming in the future, and beginning the process in 2018 to establish our new senior center. This has been possible through a cooperative effort of all elected officials and personnel at Town Hall and its employees. In closing, alone we can do so little. Together, we can accomplish a lot. I thank the first selectman for sending that, and I apologize for not having read that first. Okay, Mike, you're next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Hayes. I moved to Colchester 5 years ago. I lived here for 5 years. I retired 2 years ago, and previously from the town I lived in, I was involved in politics. I decided that after I retired that it was time for me to get back involved and help the town that I live in. At that point, I met Rosemary, and she pointed me in several directions to go. I was appointed to the Water and Sewer Commission, and I worked for the Board of Registration, so I'm sure many of you see me at the ballot box taking your ballots, dressed in my black suit with my greasy tie. My background experience is I've been a businessman for 45 years. I owned my own landscaping company on the shoreline for 27 years. I sold it. I went back to school again at UConn for non-accredited courses, which gave me the opportunity to get certified as a real estate appraiser for the Veterans Administration and also as a home inspector. I spent 9 years doing that, and as we all know, in 2006 the market just went down the hill, and unfortunately there was not much work left for me to do. So I went to Lahey & Son on a temporary basis as a banking supervisor, which actually turned into a 10 years run, and I retired from there. My job responsibilities there were to handle multi-millions of dollars on a daily basis. And it was a very stressful job, to say the least. There was a lot of laws that we had to abide by, and this experience is what I want to bring. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's the
Thank you, everybody.
Could people either speak up, because we can't hear you back here?
Okay, I can definitely do that.
Do you want a microphone? Yeah. Microphone. Go ahead and start.
So, hello everyone, my name is Amy Cahill Tameka. I'm a candidate for the Board of Education on the Democratic ticket. Little background about myself. I grew up here in Colchester. You guys know this as your senior center. I know it as my kindergarten. So that'll tell you where I come from. I truly benefited from a Colchester education. I graduated Bacon in 1990 something. At 18, I left Colchester. Most kids do. I went to the University of Connecticut, where I got a bachelor's degree in communication sciences. From there, I went to Emerson College, up in Boston, where I got a master's degree in management communications. I started my career down here on the subbase, working for the United States Navy. I was a PR specialist for the Department of Defense. So in 1999, I joined a company called Decision Intelligence, and from there, I'm there ever since, where I specialize in media analytics. So you want to know, okay, why am I telling you all this? Everything that I do comes from a communication standpoint. My whole outlook on life is how can we communicate and how do we effectively get our message across to people. And that's what I want to bring to the Board of Education. That's why I'm running. I want to be part of the education. I want to be part of the conversation about promoting excellence in Colchester schools. I've seen myself, as I said, I benefited from it. My son's come up through all the different schools, just left William J. He's now a freshman in high school. So what I'd like to ask is that you elect me a seat at the table so that I can be part of the conversation and hear all the differing opinions that we have in Colchester, because there certainly are a great amount of varying opinions. And we all have one common goal at the end of the day. We want the best for our kids, the best for our schools, and the best for our town. So thank you.
In the interest of full disclosure, I should point out that Amy and Denise were former students.
I'm James Ford. Some of you probably have seen me.
I don't think that microphone works.
Is it on? Okay, can you hear it now? Yes. Okay, I'm James Ford. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. This will be a second time around for me. I've served 4 years previously before making an attempt to become your first selectman, which was not successful, unfortunately, by a few hundred votes. So life goes on. By history, I am a registered professional engineer. I'm currently the traffic engineer for the city of Hartford, which is a very interesting job at this point, considering what's going on in that city. The reason that I'm running for the Board of Selectmen is I spent the last 3 years or so on the Economic Development Commission. We have developed a plan for the expansion of our commercial base in the community. One of the things that's of interest to me particularly is that this is going off and on. I'm going to try and yell if that's all right. That's not working too well.
You have to come right into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you move him out, that's when you move.
Okay. In any event, one of my areas of interest is development and economic development. And the concern that I have for Colchester is we are too based in residential development for our tax base. And one of the things that I'd like to do as a member of the Board of Selectmen, working with the Selectmen, is to approach the ECD to implement the plan that the Economic Development Commission has put together for how to market the community and attract additional development to the community. We've had some success, as Art pointed out in his letter. We need to do more. One of the gems that we have in this town is the largest future development area of any community in the southeastern Connecticut area. We can again recover and be the hub for this area. If you look at historically at Colchester, it was an industrial community. It was a commercial community. It was an area where people came to work. We want to see that begin to happen again. I doubt we'll ever see a Lisbon Landing be built here. That's just not happening now because of economics. But they're going to tell me I have to shut up. In any event, thank you. I look forward to your support.
I think I'm going to try this without the mic. I'm Rosemary Coyle. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. I've been there since 2007. My career started in education, 37 years in education, in the classroom, and I finished it as president of the Connecticut Education Association, representing 41,000 teachers. I've done this job because I love Colchester. It's all about advocacy and listening to the people. Since I've been on in 2007, I really got involved in senior issues, being a liaison to the Commission on Aging being a liaison to the Senior Center Study Group, and then this past year chairing the Senior Center Subcommittee. And I'm very proud of the recommendations we made to the Board of Selectmen to secure this building so senior services would continue and to purchase the land that's behind the town hall for a future senior center. So if we can figure out the economic piece that goes with that, I believe we're all in agreement that we'll move a senior center forward in this town. So it's important because you've been waiting a really, really long time. And believe it or not, I'm in that group too. I've been waiting a long, long time for that. It's been my pleasure to serve on the Board of Selectmen. We work collaboratively. We've had a great team together. I worked with Jim. While I'm up here, I want to give a few minutes of my time to recognize Denise Turner, who's running for the Board of Assessment Appeals, and John Ringo's in the back, who's running for re-election as treasurer. Both of them are running for re-election as treasurer. We don't do anything in Colchester without doing it together. So we each run as individuals. We get elected on a party. But once we finish this election, we come together. And that's how Colchester works, by all of us coming together. So I ask you to support our Democratic team. What an incredible group I'm running with. I've been so fortunate to get to know some of these individuals that I didn't really know before. So it's important that you look at who we are, why we're running, the qualifications we're bring to it, and forget the stirring of the pot that happens in the last 2 weeks in the newspaper, because some of those things, most of those things are not accurate. So I ask for your vote and your support on November 7th and for this incredible team that I'm working with. It's certainly my privilege to have served you all these years since 2007.
Hi, I'm Denise Bisla. Denise Misla, can you hear me good?
Yes.
I was raised in Colchester, graduated from Bacon Academy, University of Hartford. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I raised my children here. They're now off somewhere else. I started volunteering when they were kids in the schools, and maybe in the 90s I started looking for town volunteer positions. Volunteering at the polls. I joined the Zoning Board of Appeals and stayed there for about 8 years. I became Deputy Registrar of Voters, then Registrar of Voters, and then someone nudged me to run for Board of Selectmen, and it was a leap, but I did it, and I served just about 2 terms. My second term will be finishing up, and I'm going to try it for another term because I feel there are things not finished that I would like to see through, see some of the things that we started get accomplished. I work with a great board. We work together. The party hats come off after Election Day. We work together with all boards. We have had tri-board meetings in the past so that Board of Finance, Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen are all on the same page with the town, at least to discuss it, debate it, and see where we're going to go in the future. And again, I would like to be a part of that and continue my volunteerism for the town of Colchester that I love so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I'm Stan Sobey. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, have been since 2006, running for re-election. My wife and I moved here in 1978, which makes us still relative newcomers. Our 3 kids are graduates of Bacon Academy and are all elsewhere pursuing their dreams, but that's how it goes sometimes. I've been involved in a lot of things, school building committee, ethics commission, Board of Education, where I first served with Rosemary way back when, conservation commission. But a couple of things that are really important, like to echo what people say. From Labor Day to Election Day, it's about politics. After Election Day, it's about governance.
sides. It's about working together. It's about discerning what the shared values are, the shared goals are, and then working as a team on each board and among the boards to move that forward. So the securing of this building started in a conversation in the basement of Day Hall with members of the Board of Trustees and Jim when he was on the Board of Selectmen, when I was on as a selectman, when Art Schlosky was on the Board of Finance. That's how things happen here. We sit down, we talk, we learn, we discern, we go forward. We're going to continue to do that however things go on election day, because that's what's important for you, for everyone else in Colchester, so that we can see things through. We can get through the Senior Center project. We also have a strong team of folks who are anxious to serve you, because it's about public service. It's not politics, it's public service. People who are professional in their fields are going to talk about that, and who've accomplished things. From my standpoint, by profession, I'm a special education teacher, although I haven't been in a classroom in a long time. I've been a human services administrator, active on the state and federal levels as well, and represent you.
Hi, my name is Roberta Lepore, and I'm running for the Board of Finance in Colchester. We moved here about 22 years ago, and we specifically picked Colchester because we love the school system, we love being in the country, and so we really thought that this is where we wanted to start our home and raise our children. We raised 3 children here. Some of them now have moved out of the house, of course, because they're getting older and off to college. And so about a year ago, when I was really looking for what did I do when I came home at night, because my children weren't waiting out the door for me to help them, I decided that it was time for me to really get back involved in the community. And so I had some friends who told me that there was an opening on the Board of Finance, and so I went down and I interviewed and I was selected. And I have learned a tremendous amount in the last year about our town and how hard they really do work together, and everything that Rosemary and Denise and Stana said is really true. Everybody really does come together for one common goal, which is how do we work for Colchester. In terms of background, I am a certified public accountant. I have over 30 years experience in finance. For 10 years, I was the executive director of finance for the Mohegan Tribe, and so I have a lot of experience working with budgets related to fire and police and governments. And for the last 10 years, I've been at Pfizer. And at Pfizer, I run their financial control compliance and foreign corruption compliance work around the world. I direct about 100 people around the world. I do a lot of traveling, and so I bring a lot of different perspectives back to Colchester. But ultimately, I always come back to Colchester because this is my home. And it's not only my home, but it's also the home of my sister and my 3 nieces, who I love to death. And my mother is also looking to move into town so she can be closer to us. So I have a very vested interest in Colchester's future. I really want to be here to help move it forward. I do want to make sure that we have a strong financial backbone within Colchester, that we're not in some of the positions that we see other towns in, and that's really what my focus is. So thank you, and please consider me.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Does it sound like it's working? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah? Ready, set, go. Okay, so hello. For those who I have not met yet, my name is Andrea Migliaccio. I am currently on the Board of Finance. I've served our current Board of Finance for the last 2 budget cycles. I do liaison with the Commission of Aging. I'm also on the Police Commission and the Board of Education liaison as well. I grew up in East Hampton, and when I decided to move, I went all the way to the top of Route 16 to Colchester, Connecticut. Here I have raised my 3 children, my oldest one being senior in college. My youngest one is currently in 3rd grade. I bring that up because he has 9 more years of education in our town, and I do plan on staying here to continue to raise him. And the seat I'm asking you to elect me for is 6 years. We've had a lot of turnover in the Board of Finance over the last couple of years. I'd like you to know that I have every intention of remaining for that full term. For the reason I'm doing this, I've always been an advocate for teaching financial education. Back when I first started working at Citizens Bank back in a long time ago, I used to go to the local schools and say, can I teach a personal finance? Can I teach your young children? And I would always be chosen to teach 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, all the way up to 12th grade. I did that for 15 years. I did it for many years in the town of Colchester. I did 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, 6th, 11th, and 12th. For many years of the junior achievement, I worked with Mrs. Westling to taught personal finance. So I enjoy being in teaching financial literacy. Also what I have done is I'm currently a financial advisor, and I am an expert in financial planning in the sense of fixed income. So I bring that to you today to tell you that my qualifications in my field, I am, oh, you all ready? Really? Okay. Looking for your vote, thank you. Oh, I'm so great. Oh, I can't speak in front of you. Oh, that's so nice. It's so hard.
Hello, I'm Mitch Cozio. We're running for the Board of Ed. I grew up in this town too. Actually went to kindergarten next door. I had his class for U.S. history. Wasn't impressionable apparently, he doesn't remember. And I had his wife for science too. Now, I'm running for a 3rd term in the Board of Ed. And why am I running? I love this town. Grew up here, already went to school here, as you know. Went to Troop 72, Eagle Scout. Lived here almost all my life. The only time I left here was to go to school. And when I got married, me and my wife were like, you know what? Let's move here. Great town, great schools. And we have 3 lovely kids. And I have one in almost every school now. And I look at the schools here and I want to make sure that they're great. And they are. And I can't say that we want to change anything. They're perfect. We don't spend a lot per pupil, and they're amazing. If you go to the meetings and you see what these kids are accomplishing, it's great. And part of that is because of the cooperation we have on that board. We all talk to each other. There's no strife or arguing that goes between us. We all want the same common goal, which is great education. And I hope that I'll be able to do that for another 4 years for you. And if not, I thank you for the 8 years that I was able to do that. So thank you very much, and up to you.
Let's see if you can hear me. My name is Therese Peters, and I am with the Colchester Independent Party, and I'm running for a 2-year seat on the Board of Finance. Currently, I have been just recently actually appointed to the Board of Finance, so I'm learning very fast these few meetings I have before Election Day and then a little bit afterwards. I have lived in town for 20 years. I came from the state of Florida. My husband works for Pratt & Whitney, and we were relocated up here. We could have relocated to anywhere in the state, basically within traveling distance to Hartford. And we chose Colchester after every area that we looked at, and basically it's because we didn't have a child at the time, but looked at the schools, we looked at the time of crime statistics, and also just the general affordability of the area, which was acreage, and that was, they had really attracted us here to this town. I am just about 54 years old, and I started this a long time ago. Many of you might have recognized me from years of coming before you, running for offices, successful and then unsuccessful, but either way have been here. I have an 18-year-old son who is a sophomore in college, and I hope that he will be able to return home here and live and commute probably to work, but reside here in Colchester. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing. I also have 16 years as a Chief Operational Officer, and also I am a private investor. And so I know what it is to be able to invest and look at long-term and short-term fiscal situations. My reason for, well actually I should also say that I served on the charter the last go-around office, part one back in 2003 to 2006 as the vice chair. Wow. You sure?
I'm not asking a question.
Didn't get to finish, but I should. Just give us. I'm the only one here on my party. Yeah. And also I am president of the Colchester Concerned Citizens, which is a group that has taken on so many burdens for many residents here. And I hope one of the reasons why I want to run for the Board of Finance is because it's a fine line in balancing the wants and needs of our society, of our community, and the ability to afford it, to pay for it. And we have a lot of projects that we have started. One of them that I am looking forward to is the senior center, because by the time it's done, hopefully I'll be able to go. Thank you.
Okay, just want to keep it at 2 minutes and fairness here. I want to apologize to Nick. I have to That's probably a compliment, I don't know. Certainly not to me. Okay, now we open it for questions. Now I want to we have to end this pretty much by 3 o'clock because the senior buses come to take people home. So, be expeditious in your answers. And Norm asked me if he could ask the first question, and I would.
My name is Norm Dupuy. I'm a resident of the town of Colchester. I'd like to direct my question to each of the 4 candidates for the Board of Finance. My question is, for the record, where do each of you stand on promoting the funding for the design and construction of the new senior center? I have to repeat the question.
No. I'll go first. Again,
Stand.
Oops, I'm sorry. Therese Peters, and I would wholeheartedly support it. I think we've been waiting this from the time I moved to this town. I think we've been talking about a senior center, and we've had to put it off because we needed other things, whether it was to redo the track at the high school or build new schools. With our aging population, we definitely need to, and it's interesting because I started way back when Stan took over for Jenny Contois when she left the office, and we were both interviewed for the Board of Selectmen, and one of the questions they asked is, what did we see? Actually, John Bellsbenden asked us the question, what do you feel is the biggest hurdle for you see going forward for the town of Colchester? And my reply was an aging population, and we have not looked into supporting that enough. And even though Rosemary did ECS funding, I think it was cost sharing for educational more funding, I heard hers, so true now anyway, but we definitely need to address our aging population. So thank you.
So to answer your question, I absolutely 100% support and expect this to be built as soon as possible. I'm a little concerned that the state is coming at us. They're focused on hitting our education kind of hard, and we need to make some very big decisions about how we're going to handle that coming down the pike. So one of the worries that I think that we have is, okay, so you're going to hit education, so does that mean that the seniors are going to have to wait? Well, the truth is this building can only hold so much. You have, every month you have, your membership increases, you're over 1,000, and every month, we just discussed this in our last COA meeting, you are getting in new members. They sometimes are members from out of town, but this is a successful community for our seniors that attracts more seniors that make our services better. So you absolutely need this. You need it as soon as possible, and I do not want to see it sidetracked by other sectors in our town.
So, again, I'm going to say very similar things. I think that it's very important as well. I think it's part of, your circle of your community, and I think that as we on the Board of Finance continue to see the increase in numbers, because they give us regular reports on that, our population is continuing to grow. And I think, when we went through last year's budget, there was some number like 40% of Colchester residents will be over 55 by 2030, I think, right? 2030. So I think we have to be thinking about it now, and I think we have to make good decisions. I think Andrea's point about the state is a very valid one. We have to see what the state is going to do with that budget, because, maybe this year is a really tough year for Colchester. We're going to have to evaluate that, but certainly this is a big goal that should not be overlooked.
Can you all hear me without the microphone? Yeah. Okay. I believe the question was, how are we going to address this financially?
Mike, you're going to have to speak into that.
I believe the question was, how are we going to address this financially? Is that correct?
Yes.
I haven't heard that answer yet. I'm going to tell you how. Okay. I voted for the purchase of this property I voted for the purchase of the land. At the present, we do not even have a building committee established to develop any plans for the senior centers. We do not even know what it's going to cost at this point. We're in the process of paying down bonds, which will increase our bond rating substantially. When those bonds are paid down, and we have a plan set in place where we can rely on one figure that we can go out and get bonds and grants to build this, then we can make our decision financially on how to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, now, under our general rules, any other member of the panel who wants to respond to the question can now do so.
You already knew that.
Yeah. Go, Rosemary.
All right,
Take it,
but,
Rosemary.
you know, the way we're going to do this is we're going to do it together, okay? Because when we established the Senior Center Subcommittee, that was a joint committee of the Commission on Aging, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen. So when we go forward with what a financial plan is going to look like, we need to do that as boards together, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. We can't do this, you can't do this by yourselves in a town like this. This is the first time since I've worked on this project, since 2007, that there is true collaboration and support across all party lines. Everybody wants to do this. So what makes sense, well, Andrea and Roberta are talking about the state. We need to see what the state budget is going to come down with, because that's going to give us a final number. But what's been happening over time is the Board of Finance, as the debt service has gone down, the Board of Finance has been putting a little bit of money away each year in our budget. In other words, they've been keeping it level funded, so that when it comes to the point where we're going to have to put the senior center into the mix of financial plan, it's going to be a feasible thing. But it's not a decision that one person or one board is going to make. It's going to be a decision where we sit down, we talk to each other, we plan, and we decide, we as a town, we're going to move this forward. They wanted to, you know, we wanted to start a building committee right away. Not practical if you don't have a financial plan, because once you start that building committee, you want it to go. You want it to happen. You want the process to not stop and move on to completion. So what I say to you is the people that you elect this year are those that are going to make the decisions on how you move something forward. And it's only through collaboration that that's going to be. But I think you have such tremendous support like you've never had in the past across the board on both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to move a project like this, and with the first selectman. So that's what I truly believe, and I think it's going to get done. It's going to get done, and that's why that's the other reason I'm running. Until this is done, I feel like I need to keep running because I want to see it done before I leave.
Stan, you want the mic?
That's not
No.
going to be okay. I just want to say I'm in this for the long haul with Rosemary to see this done as well. Voters willing. We've made some commitments. We've done some things. We secured this building, a first step. We've secured land, the second step. And we did that after we did, through the study process, working with students from Central on their capstone project, do some schematics and see that the property next to Town Hall that everybody thought would be wasn't going to be suitable. And then when we had the opportunity, we invested in the property on
Lebanon Avenue.
For future. One of the things is we've worked with our financial advisor on using a mix of financial instruments in putting together the school project. We have guidance in terms of when we're going to see some things being paid off, that we can put some things together. That's at the point at which we fund that senior center. So there's a mechanism in place. It's a matter of time. On the state side, we all have concerns, but the town's budget this year is built on not having state funds like we had. And the Board of Education, each iteration of the budget that comes out of Hartford that still hasn't been finalized yet, is better for Colchester. So there's a budget framework in place, there's an agreement. We'll see at some point in the next day or two what that means for Colchester and go from there. But it is far better for Colchester than it was earlier, and we're prepared to handle that going forward so that we can stay on the path of getting to the senior center project. Denise?
The commitment, I think, was made a few years ago by all the boards. When I first started my first term, probably in early 2014, the school building committee was coming to an end. The referendum was going to occur later that year. When the three boards got together, they all spoke in support of a senior center and almost made a promise, because this new school thing was going through, the senior center would be next. And it was almost a time thing where it would take place in stages with the financing, bonding, and so forth. So that part of it is done. As they've all iterated, the land is secured. With the next Board of Selectmen, a building committee will be started, and they'll go forward. And if I'm not wrong, it's a 1 to 2 year process for a building committee. So it brings us in line with how the financial advisors want the spending and the bonding to go, so that a lot of our debt's paid down when we go into it. So it's been thought out since 2014, probably before my time then on the board. But at that point, it was what I felt was almost a promise. Every board agreed. Now, naturally, the boards will be of different people, but I think just from hearing everything on the campaign trail is that everyone running for the different boards are all on board.
I promise I'll take 30 seconds. Back when I was on the Board of Selectmen with Stan and Rosemary, we were able to set up an entity called the Operations Committee. That Operations Committee, working with the Board of Finance, Art Schlosky, was able to come up with a plan on how to move forward initially and secure this building to make sure that we had a senior center, and then to move on to a plan to basically come to a better day. I'm looking forward to being able to continue that relationship and be able to see the end of this process. Thank you.
Does any other member of the panel want to address this question? Will we ask another question? Yes, sir.
My name is Ralph Bianco. I'm a resident of Colchester Commons in Colchester. I have a question for the Board of Education people. And we all know that the state is going to affect excuse me, the overall budgets or the amount of money that you'll be receiving. And this is not the first time that the state has done this. So my question is, what contingency plans do you have, or are you planning on putting in place when these cuts do take place? That would be for both of the...
Okay.
So the town has a wonderful strategic plan that was developed, and it was done not in a moment of crisis. And it was done to include all the stakeholders, teachers, parents, students, administrative people from the town, and that needs to be kind of the true north. And in this time is not the time to start, throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's really to take that strategic plan, look at what we've called out in a time of non-emotion, right? That we said was really important and integral to our town and to the future of our town and our children, which we all agree are the future of our town, the future of our nation. And so my plan, elected, is to support that strategic plan, using it to set the priorities with the money that's available to us. And I don't see that this is a time for us to start from scratch. It's a well-developed plan. If you have not seen it, it is posted on the town website. And it is pretty inclusive and comprehensive, and it was done with a lot of expertise. And that's what I would be supporting, the use of that plan.
I think the unknown is
Speaking
scary.
to the mic.
I think the unknown is scarier than the fear of the unknown. You don't have anything to fear but fear itself, right? It's all going to come to a head in the next few days. I think trying to say right now what you would and wouldn't do is just negotiating against yourself. I think when the number comes down, decisions will be made whether or not, what resources do we have, what's the best use of those resources, and how do we allocate those to make sure there's an equitable distribution among all parties. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, input from people in the town, from different communities within our town, but it'll come down to a collaborative effort to say, okay, this is what we've got, and what do we do with it?
Thank you.
Yeah. Boy, I remember going through that. About 8 years ago, we had massive federal funding cut. And we're going to make hard decisions. You know, you cannot keep the same programs if you don't have the same amount of money. So you go through and you get a list and you end up discussing it. And you try to find out what are those hidden gems in the school that you need to keep. And, you know, I'm going to tell you the truth. If we don't get the same amount of money and you have to cut something, you're going to lose things in the school. But the board always tries to keep the school moving forward, make it stay special. And that's the only thing we can do. I can only say to those, as being a past member and going through that, it was difficult. We had to make difficult decisions, but I think the decisions that we made at the time were good. And the schools are still excellent schools. I wish we had more money. I wish we were paying the average amount per, a Connecticut student, but we don't. And if we were, we could probably chop a whole bunch of money right out of the board, out of that budget, and it wouldn't have any impact. But that money, whatever comes out, it's definitely going to have an impact. I mean, we look at small amounts of money. Could be a paraprofessional being let go, after school things being let go, sports. That's what we're going to see. But hopefully we can go and keep the schools as full as possible.
Any other questions? Irene?
Yeah, I have a question about the library. Since I've been living here in town, it seems like whenever there was a budget cut, it always affected hours at the library, although I know recently, in recent years, they've been added to it. But in my own experience, it appears that our library is truly our community center, since we don't have one. We have our senior center, but we don't have this community center. I think it would be really nice if at least maybe 2 days a week it could be open till 9 o'clock, because there's so many groups that like to use that, and when people get out of work, by the time they can get to a meeting, they're lucky if they can make it till 6. 2 hours a lot of times isn't even enough. It would be nice if we could have some extended hours for that. I know it's probably not realistic to ask for every day for it to be open longer, but I think if that's something that, whatever you have anything to do with this, could think about opening it till 9, say Tuesdays and Thursdays. Personally, as a resident, I would appreciate it.
Any comments?
I agree. It just winds up being, it's one of the things that comes off at the beginning of every budget cut. And is it a good priority? I don't necessarily think so, but those are the recommendations that are made, and when you're balancing what has to be cut, that's what's happened. But I agree with you, the library makes a lot of sense for not only for the kids and the parents and people that use it in the community to be open longer hours, and I would support that.
Okay, we have about 9 minutes left. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask people here to address the charter questions and your thoughts on those. So if you have any. So anyone would like to start on that? Probably Board of Selectmen would be the best place to start with that.
I'm not starting.
Okay, fine, thank you. Yeah, there are 6 questions that are there are 6 questions that will be on the ballot. They'll be on the back of the ballot, so be sure you turn it over. First question, I believe, is one that deals with grammatical and text changes, and those are things that are obviously something that are in our best interest to do. There's a question that deals with terms of office. One of the things that the Charter Commission has proposed and put forward is to standardize the terms of office to 4 years. Right now, selectmen are 2-year terms, so every 2 years we come here. Unfortunately, if that goes through, we'll only be here every 4 years. But I think that might be a good thing. There is a question that takes a look at putting the town clerk and tax collector as appointed officials rather than elected officials. I haven't developed a personal opinion on that right now, so I'm not going to try and share something with you on that. The other situation that I understand is being proposed is to take the treasurer's position and assign those duties to the finance department and eliminate an elected treasurer. Again, I have not personally come up with a position on that, and I'd rather not try and give you one on that today. Those are the major questions.
There's one on budget. There's one on reorganizing the whole budget process, or how it's held at town meetings. And
yeah, there's something to
I don't have the language.
to redefine some of the budget limits and things like that.
Right.
Trigger certain situations like a referendum and things like that. So again, those are things that you should look at very carefully yourself and develop your own opinions on them. But be sure to turn that ballot over after you have voted, and then vote on the ballot questions. Thank you.
Rosemary? I just want to recognize those individuals who volunteered their time to serve on the Charter Revision Commission. They put in a tremendous amount of time and energy and close reading and conversations with people about what kinds of things could potentially help us going forward, and then to put it in the hands of the voters. So the technical things, we've got a sewer and water commission that's in the charter that really limits our ability to change membership size to be able to ensure that we have quorum. So it's technical fixes like that. There are some changes around some of the offices. I can see pros and cons to both sides, and I'm still sorting those out myself. But I think the important thing is to recognize that these are recommendations that came from people like you, who live here in town, who have an interest in what could be best for Colchester going forward, and those are the recommendations that are going forward for everyone.
Anyone else like to speak?
Just briefly, I think a couple weeks ago in the River East there was an insert with the charter questions and the language, all the explanation of each question. I know I got it, hoping you all did, because it's good to refer to. It's on the town website, you can read it there. Getting to the budget items, I think it's just bringing those budget items up to date in terms of bringing things to town meeting and referendum as far as dollars. Dollars have changed over 10 years. So as far as the offices for town clerk and tax collector, I too don't have an opinion. Treasurer, I do tend to think that the position might be repetitive in that we have a CFO that handles a lot of that and could actually do that job. Another question in that technical language is just a lot of reorganization of the charter so that when you read it, things that belong together, like discussion of budget, referendum, will all be together. Right now, when you want to look up something about budgets, you may find it in 2 or 3 different spots. So I think you're going to see a nice cleanup of the charter and it will flow better. And as Stan said, the Charter Revision Commission really did a lot of work to clean that up from the past 10 years. So go look at the town website if you didn't have that insert from the River East, and you'll be able to read about that before you get there on election day. It will help.
questions? John?
Yeah, I got a question for you. I've been coming over here since 99. Every year they were saying they're going to build the new senior center every 5 years. And I've been here to 2017 and we're still zero. But the thing is, the question number 2, I got it right there. I make you work on that one. Everything's over here. So the settlement we had in 2004, he said we have $1 million in the bank for the senior center. 3 weeks later, was zero in the bank. Where the money went, I don't know. I came to all the meetings in '99 over here. So I learned a lot of stuff. And I memorized a lot of stuff. And, you know, that would been insane. But in the future, you know, most of the place, you know, I visit, like Wallingford, all the places like Groton and everything, the senior center, they communicate together for the youth group, the young fella and the adult. And some people vote just for the adult. But most places, they function 2 in 1. Like Groton, they got a big senior center there. Wallingford, the director used to live there. I call that a mothership. Out the whole, the senior center I went, you can't fit them all in the same building. And that's why I like, you know, when you travel, you learn a lot of stuff. When you stay between 4 walls, you don't know nothing. I've been traveling and I've been learning for a lot of stuff. That's the end of my chapter. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Just a quick one. On that charter question where it would be changed from election to appointment, who would be making the appointments, the decision maker?
I assume it's the board of selectmen.
They would be like a department head, so the department heads come before the Board of Selectmen. That's one of the jobs of the Board of Selectmen. So the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen would decide on who would be the appointed town clerk or tax collector. Thank you.
If the state does away with the property tax on vehicles and boats and how are we going to raise the extra money? Are you going to raise our taxes more on our houses?
That's the question everybody's asking. And they don't. Apparently it was addressed at the state budget that apparently was finalized at 1:30 this morning. So it got past any newspaper deadlines when they all came out. So apparently we're still waiting that question. What I understand is that it'd be tax on automobiles of the current fiscal year, 2017-18. The question is, what were they going to do with it for the second year? And apparently going into that session, it was still up in the air. And if you ask me what I'll bet they're going to keep it, because they've still got to balance the state budget. But you have to understand, if they do away with the property tax, then you're narrowing the number of the base that you can tax.
Yes, Dan, what's up?
Just to add to what John has said, the legislative leadership came to an agreement about 1:30 this morning. The first caucus of members is scheduled for 5:30 this afternoon. They were not releasing any details until they could take what has been agreed upon by the leadership to the 4 caucuses, Democrat, Republican, House, and Senate, for them to be able to weigh in on what's being proposed. As John has indicated, there seems to be some walking back of the elimination of the car tax, but we don't have any confirmation as yet to that. There had been a cap in the mill rate on car tax. That is going to be set at 37. It could, for this fiscal year, it could go higher next fiscal year, it could be, we don't know what happens after that. We won't know for a day or two. Like I said, they're meeting in caucus, and according to the majority leader, Matt Ritter from Hartford, he's indicated that they could start the process of voting the budget as early as midday tomorrow, but certainly hopes to have it done by the end of the week. That's the latest information that we've seen. Now, that could have changed in the time we've been in this room.
Now, it's getting close to the witching hour, so I want to conclude, first of all, by thanking all of the people on the panel. I want every one of you to understand that essentially these are volunteer positions. None of these guys get paid. And our form of government can only continue when people volunteer to do these kinds of jobs. And my thanks to all of you for running and for serving. And I promise I'm going to try to remember Mitch and go too. Unless you have a burning question, we are adjourned.
Second. Thank you. Thank you.